Hey guys, welcome back to Serial at Midnight. I'm really excited about this conversation with filmmaker, producer, extraordinaire Rocco DeVilliers for a conversation about, well, several things, including Untold Stories of Back to the Future, which is on the brand new 40th anniversary. Uh, I was gonna say 4K, but I think it's on the Blu-ray too, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and the digital release. So,
Yes, yes. It's pretty cool
yeah,
that they're adding those special features to the digital versions of these things now.
it really is. I mean, I'm a purist. I've always been a big fan of physical media. There's something really magical about holding that disc in your hand, and the packaging is always really cool, and being able to put it on your shelf. And then, hey, if the internet's down, you can still watch your film, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And not only that, but quality. I mean, the image is streaming is, at 6 times the bit rate of the compression you get with streaming. So it's just better all around, I feel.
Well, see, that opens the question though. Do you care if people, you just want them to see it, right? Like when it's everywhere. This documentary feature is everywhere now, which is kind of cool. Do you
Yeah,
care
it's
how they come to it? Or do you go like, well, you should definitely check it out on the 4K because that's the purest form of the thing I made.
no, not for this. I mean, if it was a film, yes. If it was a narrative, but for something like this, it's yes, it's nice to see that, we did master it in 4K HDR, and um it's fun. It's nice to see the clips of the film in 4K, and we were really careful to just maintain the highest quality possible. But at the end of the day, Universal just wanted an HD version, so it's really just 1080p on all across all platforms as part of the Universal release.
Hmm.
Um, but this is kind of a sneak preview that we licensed to Universal. It's a 38-minute, essentially sneak preview of a larger 5-hour documentary we've been working on, all about the production of Back to the Future. And that will be released in 4K HDR when it's all completed. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a real journey.
How long
Uh,
has the journey? When did it start?
2 years ago,
Okay.
we set out to make a show that examined famous movie cars called Picture Car. And we thought, okay, obviously we want to do the Time Machine from Back to the Future. We want to do Kit from Knight Rider. We want to do the Ecto One from Ghostbusters. The Bluesmobile from the Blues Brothers, the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard. So we kind of started on this odyssey and started conducting interviews, tracking down, crew members, cast members, and doing a deep dive into the car and the stunts. And what happened was we started accumulating so much incredible, never before shared stories and information about these films and TV shows, that we kind of pivoted, and I thought this stuff is so incredible, and these stories need to be told. This needs to be preserved for future generations to really fully appreciate what these filmmakers did. And so then, yeah, we started in on this Back to the Future, this epic Back to the Future documentary, and we were able to get Universal something for the 40th anniversary, which was a lot of fun. Universal was great. We were able to get into the archives, and as a fanboy myself, I'm a huge fan myself, and I'm doing this project for fun because it's something that I frankly just want to see myself,
Yeah.
and to be able to have access to the archives and see things that I'll bet some people haven't seen in 40 years,
Yeah.
because they're not digging into the original film negatives like I did, and I got in there. And
Well,
the
hold
thing
on.
that's
So you've
interesting,
seen the Stoltz footage, right?
I haven't seen the Stoltz footage, but I'll
Okay.
tell you, I did see all of the still photography from Ralph Nelson, the still photographer on Back to the Future. And he documented everything very well. He was one of the best, and he's an incredible talent in that area. And um, he captured every single day shooting Eric Stoltz. So to go through those photos and see
Hmm.
these iconic scenes with Stoltz playing Marty McFly, it's interesting because it's almost like the thing that makes Back to the Future so unique to other films, um, apart from being arguably the greatest film of the 80s, uh, is that there is this alternate version, this almost parallel universe version of the film sitting in a vault. And I think that fascinates fans. It certainly fascinates me because the curiosity of, wow, I mean, what would it be like to sort of travel into a parallel dimension and sort of witness an alternate timeline?
Hmm.
Well, this is the physical manifestation of that. And when I was interviewing Bob Gale, he mentioned that he said, we're one of the few people who experienced making a movie with the wrong actor for the role and going through that process, and then the rare opportunity of going through the process again with the right actor for the role. Now, I don't want to diss on Eric Stoltz. He's an incredible talent. He's become an amazing director. Uh, but the circumstances aligned and they had to go with Eric Stoltz, and he had just come off of Mask, which is an amazing performance. And but he just wasn't quite right for what Bob Zemeckis had in mind for that character. And so to hear Bob Gale talk about this experience of making a movie twice, really, because 6 weeks with Eric Stoltz, and they pretty much
Wow.
shot all of the 1950s material with Eric Stoltz, which is most of the film.
Yeah.
It was fascinating. It was so surreal to see those images,
Now,
and
are these stories going to be in the 5 hour cut of the documentary?
they will,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Uh, we were able to, the Eric Stoltz portion of the shoot is a big part of it, absolutely. And
Okay.
for me, I didn't want to focus necessarily on the cast for these interviews. This is an amazing group of people. The cast, they're incredible. They've given incredible interviews. But usually on these EPK behind the scenes things, you see the cast and the director and the producer. For me, I wanted to find the people that were working in the trenches making this film, the crew, the ADs, the production managers, the DP, the camera crew, the stunt team, all these people that were there in the trenches, so to speak. And it's an interesting perspective because there are stories that have just never been told before. And for a film like Back to the Future, that's rare because so many people have sort of dug and dug and dug, and there's, very passionate fans. And you'd think that pretty much every interesting story's been told, but I'm here to tell you they haven't yet.
That's
there's
awesome. Yeah.
there's
Well, we
some
definitely get it.
incredible.
It's interesting to learn that the 38-minute version that I've seen several times now is just like a tease. It's just like a little taste.
Yeah, yeah,
You got Dean
yeah,
Cundey, which is a huge thing for me because I love Dean. I mean, one of the greatest cinematographers of what I consider one of the greatest eras of movie production ever.
absolutely.
All the Carpenter stuff, right? And then,
Oh,
yeah.
incredible. Incredible. The Jurassic Park, Apollo 13. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Dean, and the thing that's so great is Dean is the sweetest guy you'll ever meet. I mean, Dean is so humble. And what's great is he's kind of quiet and he's, reserved and humble, but then he'll whip out this like dry sense of humor of his, and he'll come up with like a, a joke or a comment, and it kind of throws you off. But he's really funny. He's a very witty, funny guy. But anyway, so yeah, to sit down with Dean, and you know, um, it was funny because Dean has got a lovely wife, Patricia. She was so supportive and helped us, and we got Dean in for the interview, and we weren't gonna. We had Dean for a limited time, so we weren't even gonna go into the Eric Stoltz portion of the shoot. But then at one point in the interview, Dean is like, "Is it okay if I talk about Eric Stoltz?" And I'm like, Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting to hear Dean talk about the fact that, again, a very unique opportunity where you've shot the film, you've shot these scenes, and Dean was able to sort of improve upon some things because he had the experience of going through it once before and just how that informed some of the decisions. And it's a fascinating story. It really is. I mean, it's unique to any, I don't think anything like that has ever happened in that way, especially, a film that big. But again, you had lightning in a bottle. You had, like Frank Marshall said when I interviewed him, everything aligned to where you had all these very special people coming together at the perfect time to make this film.
Hmm.
And they just busted their asses. They worked so hard on this, and it was Bob's vision is incredible. The tone he hit for this film is a miracle. It's the perfect, like the way he blended comedy and heart and action, and there's intense moments, like something about the blend of the tone that he nailed on this was so perfect. Mike Fink, the great Academy Award winning, designer and practical effects, this man worked on Blade Runner, and has worked with, Ridley Scott, and anyway, an incredibly gifted, brilliant man. He made a comment, and this didn't make it into the universal cut, but he basically, acknowledged the fact that the true miracle of the film was Bob Zemeckis' directing and how he just nailed the tone so perfectly. And without that, the film could have easily just strayed one way or another, and then everything would be off balance. And people don't realize what a miracle it is when there's thousands of films made every year. There's all kinds of content being made, but for all the stars and all the elements to align in perfection, really, like with Back to the Future, is a miracle. And it's so rare, but we have this amazing film that we can just enjoy for the rest of our lives. And like Frank Marshall said, I think the film is going to play forever. I
Hmm.
mean,
Well, it's been 40 years already, and it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't feel dated in the way that some movies from its time do feel dated. It still feels relevant and timeless, I don't know that I believe in perfect movies, but I think Back to the Future is about as close to that as you can get, where everybody just loves it.
yeah, that's a good point. And when people bring up, perfection, Bob Zemeckis is the first to say it's not a perfect movie. I think there are a few shots that are out of focus. He'll like make that comment.
Yeah.
But no, I think you're right. Sean Daniel, who was the executive in charge of production at Universal, the first time I talked to Sean, it was about the Blues Brothers because he was the executive in charge of production, in 1979, 1980 when they were making the Blues Brothers, but Sean was obviously there for Back to the Future as well. And it's interesting, Sean couldn't be more proud of being involved with Back to the Future. And if you look at all of the iconic films during that period that Sean Daniel had a hand in as the executive at Universal in charge of these productions, it's you see him light up when he talks about Back to the Future. And Sean is just a gem of a human being. I mean, Sean Daniel, I couldn't be more impressed. I mean, this is a guy who was the youngest studio executive ever, at Universal. He's in his 20s and he's answering to Lou Wasserman, Sid Sheinberg, and Ned Tannen. And these guys they're icons, but they're hardcore. I mean, these guys were hardcore dudes. And Sean, bless his heart, went through the trial by fire as a young executive, and oftentimes would be the whipping boy for these tirades when films would have problems or go over production, over schedule or over budget. And Sean's stories are just the best. I mean, that guy has seen it all. And to hear him talk about Back to the Future with all his experience in the film industry, Sean refers to it as perfection, and attributes that to part of the lasting legacy of the film. But any chance I get to talk to Sean Daniel, I jump at it because the guy is just incredible. I mean, what a gem of a human. I just feel so honored and blessed. And after the documentary, this portion for Universal was completed, Sean took the time to call me and tell me how much he enjoyed it and how happy he was with it.
Wow.
And for me, that was, to get a call like that from someone like Sean Daniel was just, the fanboy in you is doing cartwheels, right? I mean, it was
Yeah.
just a beautiful thing.
That's rare too for somebody to follow up with you like that. I kind of
it
got to
it
experience, I
is.
may cut this out, but I got to interview Kenneth Johnson a couple of years ago, the creator of the Incredible Hulk TV show and V.
Love Ken Johnson. Yeah.
He was like, this what he emailed me after the interview. He was like, this went really well. Send me the link when you finish it and I'll post it on my website. And he never did. He never posted it on his website. And I was like, what happened, Kenneth Johnson? Kenny Johnson? I don't know what happened, but
Kenny. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I was a huge fan of V.
Oh, it's amazing. V's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I was a kid and V, I was obsessed with V. I mean, it was my favorite show at the
That
time.
shot where the face breaks away and you see the
Yeah.
the lizard, whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's so iconic. It's like, yeah, and the thing is, I knew there was an element of cheesiness to it, but I was so wrapped up in the story, I just went with it, and I accepted it, flaws and all. But V was some damn fine TV in the '80s.
Well, listen, you just dropped something a couple of minutes ago that I have to ask you about it. You said you first met Sean Daniel talking about the Blues Brothers. Well, what's that? Can you say anything else about that?
Yeah, so the Blues Brothers 45th anniversary disc comes out later this month, and there is a 1 hour documentary that I produced on there. And that's the one, I, dare I say, I'm the most proud of.
Oh,
The Blues Brothers, we have a 5 hour documentary deep dive about the making of the Blues Brothers, and interviewed Dan Aykroyd, of course, John Landis, and again, seeking out all the surviving members of the crew, the stunt team. That film is so iconic and was such a game changer. Not only was it the first comedy, big budget comedy, because back then, comedies, from the studio in the studio's eyes, comedies shouldn't cost much money, right? They're pretty economic. They can be produced pretty economically. But Landis, being John Landis, made this epic, sprawling, action-packed, musical road movie, right?
hmm.
Um, and kicked the door open, by blending all these genres, not only the music side of that film, but the stunt work, the tone, the comedy. I mean, it was really a game changer of a film. And so I felt like it was a really important one to document and have these stories told while these people are still around. I mean, I interviewed Terry Leonard, the iconic stuntman who went under the truck in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I remember growing up seeing the special on TV, great movie stunts of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and just like salivating over because back then you couldn't just rent the movie, or, if it wasn't in the cinema at your local cinema, you weren't seeing that movie. And so I would daydream about it. And so when that came on TV, I had a friend who owned one of the kind of the first, consumer VCRs, and he recorded it. So we had the tape, and we were in grade school, and we would go to the library after school, and they had a VCR and TV, and we would pop that in and just watch it again and again and again. And Terry Leonard is a big part of that documentary. So have it, to be able to spend an afternoon with someone like Terry Leonard and talk about, and incidentally, Terry Leonard did work on Back to the Future. A lot of people don't know that. Terry Leonard is good friends with Walter Scott, the stunt coordinator, and Walter, during the whole switchover from Stoltz to Fox, Walter had to run off and do some work on Silverado. And
Has the
he asked Terry to fill in for him for a week. So Terry was there when they were doing the clock tower, and Bob Yerke slid down the wire and was doubling Chris Lloyd. And so that was interesting to talk to Terry about that. And then, of course, Terry worked on the Blues Brothers as well, did some, stunt driving. But these people are, they've done such amazing things. And for me, it's really important to preserve these stories. And
Right.
so, in in answer to your question, yes, there is a Blues Brothers documentary, and you'll be able to see a 1 hour version of that on the upcoming physical media 4K release of the Blues Brothers. It's a steel book.
Okay. Um, well, okay, so the Blues Brothers documentary is a preview of a longer thing. The Back to the Future featurette is a preview of a longer thing. You also did a Knight Rider. There's a Knight Rider. I think it's right up on an hour. Knight Rider Behind the Wheel for the recent 4K release of Knight Rider. Is that part of a larger thing? A 5 hour version of Knight Rider?
It is. It
Is it
is.
really?
In fact, the Knight Rider documentary is going to be coming out first.
Oh,
Knight
listen, I'm a
Rider,
huge
we're
Knight Rider fan. Okay.
nice. We're
Okay.
we're about to here in the next few weeks. We're going to be launching a pre-order, and what we're doing is because a portion of this went to Universal for the 4K release, and that's its own unique version. And and then there is, there's going to be this larger kind of content that we've accumulated about the deep dive of making Knight Rider, and just not only the concept, the creation, the car, the production itself, maintaining the car, just every aspect of production, the eventual cancellation of the show, what happened to the cars after the show, the legacy of the show, the replica builders, the fans. I mean, it's like the epic story of Knight Rider and what an impact it had. But again, the stories that have never been heard before are incredible. And it's a true love letter to all the Knight Rider fans, for all the Knight Rider fans. And so we're releasing a limited edition Blu-ray with this 5 hour deep dive. It's the only time this will ever be for sale. Is this limited edition Blu-ray? There'll be parts of this, that'll be available in other places, but to have it all, and there'll be, large portions of on this Blu-ray that'll probably never be released again. But it's really we want to create something special for the super fan of Knight Rider. So we're releasing this package, this set, and we're going to have a window where you can pre-order it, and that's coming up very soon. And um, I'll make sure you get the info when we launch that. But
Okay.
we're excited about it because I'm a big Knight Rider fan as well. I mean,
Yeah.
to see that show as a kid, have that show come on, I mean, it captured my imagination. I mean, the stunts, and
Mhm.
David Hasselhoff, you know, unfortunately gets shit on a lot. Uh, he's an incredible guy. He's an incredible guy. And to hear what a true leader he was on that set, and to hear about how kind he was to everyone and how generous he was to his fans, and still is. And I was very impressed. I mean, I interviewed all the ADs, the production managers, the producers, the writers, the directors, the stunt team. I mean, so many people involved in that show, and across the board, every one of them has nothing but good things to say about Hasselhoff, and just because often your lead sets the tone for the whole production. And Hasselhoff was just an absolute professional and a very kind human being. And it's nice to hear that about people that you grew up admiring, right?
Yeah,
Because
because it's not
often
always the case, right?
it's not always the case. It's like, don't meet your heroes,
Right.
it's always what you hear. But so that was really, there are really cool things like that, and to hear about some of the stuff Hasselhoff did for his fans that he didn't want to talk about. Tom Green told me, he said, David came up to me and he said, if you tell anybody I'm doing this, I'm going to be really upset. I'm not doing this I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for them. And he was very protective of, like, his good deeds getting out, which again is just a testament to the kind of guy he is. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Do you want to reference people toward a particular website or a place that they can stay stay up to date on what might be coming out, or do you want to keep that under wraps for now?
Yeah, so wheelhousetv.com is a platform that we created uh, for for the projects, the one project called Picture Car about famous movie cars, and then there's another show called Cut to the Chase about iconic car stunts in the pre-digital age. Those can be found at wheelhousetv.com. And the Knight Rider deep dive documentary can be pre-ordered there, and we're going to be launching that here in just a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So I'll
Before the
send
end
you
of
the
2025, right?
yes before the end of 2025, and
Okay.
there'll be a window. And the pre-orders, there's different packages, and there's some fun stuff in there. But again, it's like we wanted to create something really special for the super fan.
Hmm.
It's interesting because there's take a I was actually shocked at how many Knight Rider fans there are worldwide. There's a huge fraternity of Knight Rider fans. People don't realize how big that fan base is. And then of course something like Back to the Future, you've got this worldwide fan base. But what's interesting is you've got the fans who they want to own the film, they want to watch the film. Maybe they'll get a piece of merch or two. But then you've got this niche inside a niche called the super fan, right?
Hmm.
And the super fan is the kind of fan who's going to want to watch a 5 hour documentary about every everything that happened on Back to the Future. I'm one of those super fans. So again, I'm making this for, sort of my people, so to
Yeah.
speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's
So
exciting to me to hear. Well, I can first of all, I can see it in the work itself from what I've seen. I haven't seen any 5 hour versions of anything, but what I've seen, as you well know, there's not a lot of stuff out there about Knight Rider telling the story of, it's achieved this huge cult status, as you just mentioned, but we don't have any documentaries about it. There aren't even really any EPK things made in the last 20 years to talk about Knight Rider. So the fact that you got all these new interviews with people is huge. And then with Back to the Future, you would think that after 40 years it's all been said, everything that's there to be said has been told, but no, that's not the case. And I applaud you on that because I see there are a lot of, I'm going to be careful how I say this, there are a lot of documentary projects that really exist as a product first and don't necessarily bring the goods. They're just selling you your own nostalgia. And that's not really what you've, from what I've seen, that's not what you've done here. You've got actual stories and there's substance to it. I learned a lot from everything I've seen from you so far.
thank you, Heath. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate it. I mean, that's a huge compliment, especially coming from a fellow fan. We love this stuff, and we were very lucky to grow up in an era with this kind of content because it really did inform and shape, you know, the kind of people we became. And, I mean, it was a beautiful thing. I think civilization peaked in the 80s, frankly. It was the perfect balance of pop culture, but yet real life, not taken over by technology yet, but
Right.
just enough technology where it's like, technology was sort of expanding and growing, but it just reached the pinnacle where the human experience had this fun, optimistic kind of thing going on with popular culture, but yet we were still out riding our bikes around and living a life and being outdoors and everything else. And we had to wait for our favorite show to come on. We couldn't just get it instantly. We had to look forward to it. There was something really magical about that period. And then it started kind of slowly shifting as technology went further and further and further. And then we started like leaving that pinnacle
Mhm.
portion. And
Well,
I
people might
just
say
feel
that that's
very
just
lucky.
nostalgia, but I don't think that that's just nostalgia talking. I think that having lived through that time and all of the time after, there was something about that we've lost it, and I mean, I really don't know that we're ever going to get it back.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I really do. You know, yeah, I mean, I've, I raised kids and got two boys, and I'm really happy that they got a childhood where they got to climb trees and ride their bikes around and build snow forts and everything else. But it's like that; it's like that is becoming even more and more diminished as people become more dependent on technology, and these young kids, it's it's kind of scary,
Well, we're
but
all walking around staring at a glowing box in our hand, right? And it's just that's the focus all the time.
it's the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's like literally. I mean, that's kind of where we're headed. It's yeah. So
I do hope that at some point, and I've heard from people that have, well, film professors and people that I know have said, there's hope that this younger generation is starting to get sick of all this technology. Technology can be a wonderful tool, but when you're living in it all the time, you lose the now.
yeah,
And
that's a great point. That's a great point. Because at the end of the day, we're human beings and we do need to interact with each other. And the most beautiful portions of life are, what you can share with other human beings, which, and as film and TV guys and fans, we are losing that cinematic collective experience where, people are not going to the cinema as much anymore. And
Mhm.
but to see one of these great films with an audience and have that collective experience and the energy of that, how much longer are we going to have cinemas around? I mean,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 generations is that going to be just completely diminished? I think there's always going to be a group of purists, and there's probably going to be people that just sort of decide to reject technology. And at what point is AI going to be just literally creating all the content we watch? But I think there's always going to be the purists that want to see that in-camera performance, that random element.
Do you worry about technology as a creator? Do you worry about being able to tell your stories?
Not really. I think for something like now, I've produced and directed features and TV, and I kind of stepped away from that to raise my kids, which was the best thing I ever did. I had some really great opportunities to direct some studio films, and without going into a lot of detail, that was a fascinating experience for that period in my life. But focused on raising my kids, and I decided to do these projects once my kids were grown. I did these projects for me, and to answer your question, a project like this, which is unscripted, I
Hmm.
think that will always have a place that AI can't touch. Uh, but narrative, yeah, it's pretty crazy because the amount of work that goes into creating a traditional film, where you've got stunt work and you've got to do everything in camera and you've got these digital tools, et cetera. It's not going to be, I mean, it's happening now, but in longer form, people are going to be able to just order up their own entertainment with AI. Like, for example, if I had the tools, I'd be like, okay, as a Star Trek fan, I'd love to see season 4 of Original Trek, like that never got made because the show got canceled. So it's like, what if AI, I could just basically say, okay, give me a season 4 classic Star Trek episode based on this novel written in the 70s as a storyline, but original cast, the look, the sets, everything else go. And then AI comes up with this, new Star Trek content. And because I'm not selling it or posting it, I, you know, I can create it. I mean, what's going to happen to these IPs? I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about, you
What
know.
I'm worried about is that in the near future, not the distant future, the near future, we might get a Back to the Future 4 with a digitally created Marty McFly and Doc, where they look like they'd you've already see it in so many of these movies where they've de-aged the people, and it sometimes it does that last Indiana Jones movie, is it Dial of Destiny? Like they've done the de-aging of Harrison Ford, and sometimes it looks okay and sometimes it doesn't. But that was a few years ago. What's it gonna look like in 5 years? And I don't know that I want that. Then let me be clear. I don't know if I want that, but I feel like we're getting closer to it now.
Yeah, we'll definitely see it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, with how quickly this technology is progressing. I mean, look how far we've come just in 2 years with AI and deep fake and everything else, imagine 10 years from now. I
Yeah,
mean, it's kind of scary. It'll be interesting.
it will be. All right, so you've teased us with a lot of projects and you got me excited. And I know now, I didn't know this before we started this conversation, that there's at least 15 hours of the three things that I know about, the Knight Rider, the Blues Brothers, and the Back to the Future documentaries. 15 hours of these conversations. Anything else you want to sort of talk about or tease? I mean, I want to leave the platform open to go wherever
Yeah,
you want to go.
well, we are there is a Dukes of Hazzard one in the mix, and we interviewed John Schneider and Tom Wopat
Oh,
and
wow.
Kathy Bach and Guy Waldron, the creator of the show.
Wow.
He's
Moon
not
Runners. Did he talk about Moon Runners at all?
he did, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and Guy is, in his 90s, and he is so sharp and smart. To hear about how that show came to be is incredible, and to hear his stories, amazing. And then, of course, the stunt team. I mean, you know, Dukes of Hazzard paved the way for shows like Knight Rider and the A Team, but
yep.
they had to figure this stuff out on a weekly basis. I mean, nobody was jumping cars like that on TV. I mean, if you think about Smokey and the Bandit from 1977, there's only one car jump in that film. You think of it, oh, it's a big stunt movie, but Dukes of Hazzard was doing several jumps a week. And to hear these guys talk about how they had to figure it out, for example, stuntmen were breaking their backs.
Oh,
I mean, you see that iconic jump over in the show opening of Dukes of Hazzard. Gary Baxley was driving the car. He was like going 75 miles an hour, and he hit that jump and jumped over that creek, that pond, and the landing was so harsh. It was like a sandy sort of like, you know, bed next to the water, and the car hit and just got stuck and just, so the all the forward inertia just stopped, and he broke his back. And fortunately, he's not a paraplegic or anything, and he recovered. But they had to figure out, okay, how are we going to avoid this? They came up with this this harness. It was like a corset, and they would bungee cord themselves onto the roll cage. Their butt was like maybe 6, 8 inches off the seat because they were bungeed in so hard, and it would help reduce the impact. But they were coming up with stuff like this. I mean, that technology is still used today. And Jack Gill, who did most of the jumps and driving on Knight Rider, and was the stunt coordinator and did second unit as well. They perfected that bungee harness, and so that kind of stuff is really interesting. So there's a Dukes of Hazzard one as well. It's a deep dive. Um,
5 hours.
yeah,
Is it really?
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a lot of material, but it just tells the story. And if you're a fan, even if you're a fan of just cinema or
Yeah.
production, it's fascinating, and it's like so entertaining. I mean, some of the stuff is so funny and outrageous, but it's indicative of an era that is like long gone. I mean, we'll
Oh, yeah.
never see production like that ever again,
Well, is
and
it in the Knight Rider? I think it's in the Knight Rider feature where someone talks about they wreck the car in the morning and they take it to the shop and fix it up and have it back by the end of the day for something else. That's
yeah.
right, right? I'm not remembering that incorrectly.
Yeah, so they had that shop going around the clock, and at the beginning they only had 3 cars, and so they were really dependent on fixing the cars. And then there's this incredible story about how they were able to get more cars due to a train derailment. It's just insane. I mean, Pontiac was shipping some Trans Ams and Camaros and Z28s from one of their factories, and they had all these car carriers, and the train derailed early in the morning, and all these cars, were damaged. Some were totaled, some were not damaged so much, but for insurance purposes and legal purposes, they couldn't resell them. So they called NBC, and they're like, hey, we've got, you know, 18 cars. You want them? And they gave them to him for $1 each. And they said, okay, but contractually, you've got to promise and sign an agreement that when you're done with them, they go to the crusher. You can't resell them. And so all of a sudden, they had all these cars, and they were able to do more jumps and more stunts because they had more cars at their disposal. But the sad thing is, at the end of the production, when it got canceled, these cars went to the crusher, and there's only 5 surviving kits, screen used kits. And I was able to shoot 3 of them in great detail. And it's fun to, so the fans are going to be able to see every little nuance and modification to these screen used cars. And it's fascinating to look at them up close and personal and see all the little details. And
Hmm.
it's pretty cool stuff. So the Knight Rider one, I'm very excited about. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. But
I'm excited about all of those. Dukes of Hazzard too. Dukes of Hazzard has very little representation in the not in the fandom. Well, I don't know about the fandom, but it's almost like you don't have to comment on this, but it's like the show never existed. You know, it's got a DVD release, which I've got, and I think it's got a digital release too. But there's nobody talking about the Dukes of Hazzard. I don't think there's any merchandise for the Dukes of Hazzard. It's sort of an untapped. I'm like, Warner Brothers, do you know you have this? Do you know you can leverage this?
yeah, that's a very interesting point. Warner Brothers a few years ago, because of the rebel flag on the roof of the
Oh yeah,
General,
yeah.
really kind of buried the show. They took it off of syndication, and yes, there is that DVD version, and yes, you can get it on iTunes. And it was interesting to talk to Kathy Bach and Wopat and Schneider about this, and Guy Waldron, and you know. They're all really fun people. You can tell they love the show. They had an incredible ride. And politically, they're all kind of different politically. And but they all say the same thing about, look, don't blame the car. This was never intended to be racist or anything else. It's the Tennessee state flag representative of the state flag of Tennessee. And it was it was never intended to be offensive. And I think in today's world, there's a lot of people that just look for things to get offended about. Now, granted, look, I don't want to be insensitive to anybody, and you know, we certainly don't want things that are representative of racism. But really, I think the flag on the General Lee has kind of been blown out of proportion and taken out of context a little bit. But it was interesting to hear their take on it, and the show should be available to fans. The show represents a time,
Hmm.
and I rewatched it recently in preparation for for these interviews and everything else. And the show really is a lot of fun. I mean, it's very obvious why it was such a big hit, and the story of how it got there, and it's fascinating stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, the Dukes of Hazzard, like you said, there's not much out there about it, and there should be. These stories do need to be told. They need to be preserved. It's a part of history,
Well, so are you
So,
including what you just said about the flag? Will that be in the documentary?
oh yeah, yeah,
See, this is that's what I was telling you. You're putting some truth in there. You're putting, I shouldn't use the word truth. Someone told me one time truth is relative because everyone thinks that their version of the story is the truth. But you're putting the stories in there and you're not,
I am.
yeah.
Yeah, and we just want to address things head on, and it's interesting to hear these different perspectives on it. Any good documentary, you want to hear kind of every side, right? And then you make up your own mind. I mean, so often things are so manipulated, and it's like one-sided, and for me, it's like, no, let's just put the information out there, let everybody say what they're going to say, and share their viewpoint, and the audience can decide,
Mhm.
But the spirit of the show is was never intended to be offensive or racist or anything, and the show's indicative of the time, and um, these people that were involved are so smart and thoughtful and articulate, and the stories are just they're just absolutely incredible. So I'm excited about it.
Well, let's wind it down by going Back to the Future because this has been out for not long. I mean, this is really
Yeah,
just hitting people's
yeah.
feeds and their shelves and things like that. Are you getting any early feedback about what people think about it? Let me tell you first that I thoroughly enjoyed this new piece that the 38-minute version of it, and it makes me feel it taps into the feeling of the movie, like when it's over, all the stuff, Bob Gale's telling these stories, and the idea that it's about family, and there's something about it that just feels so, and the music, you got the music in there from the movies. It just feels so warm and comforting and more of the thing that I love. So are other
Thank
people
you.
telling you something similar to that? I hope so.
I've been so busy, I haven't really gotten online to read comments about
Maybe
it.
that's for the best. Maybe you don't want to read
Yeah,
online comments.
yeah. Yeah, and thank you for saying that. I really just wanted to create something that celebrates the film, but also I wanted to really get into, the people that made it. They're real human beings. So often you sort of look at some of these filmmakers as, okay, well, they're untouchable. They're these incredible iconic people, but they're still human beings with feelings, and to sort of tap into what was it really like to sit in that first preview of the movie where you don't even know if it's going to work for an audience, and to see the audience react the way it did, and to have them share these personal experiences. It was really beautiful. And you mentioned the music. The music is actually all original. Universal wouldn't
Is
let
it
us
really?
use, yeah, they wouldn't let us use music from from Alan Silvestri's score. I mean,
Okay.
there's the end credits has a piece from Alan Silvestri, but the body of the piece, Matt Gorney did all the music. And Matt is this incredible artist who I met on a TV series called the Aquabat Super Show from like 15 years ago. And Matt is this incredible artist. So he did this the original music for the upcoming Blues Brothers documentary, and it's all in the style of that incredible blues music. But then he can quickly change hats and do a kind of Alan Silvestri style
Hmm.
that's an homage, and kind of got that flavor. And then Knight Rider, he did this fun kind of 80s kind of thing that was indicative of that television score. So yeah, it's all original music.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Very job well done. One other thing that I wanted to tell you that was cool is I've never connected the dots that Back to the Future was an influential skateboard movie. But you got Tony Hawk talking about like, oh yeah, we were what he's skateboarding in this. I've never thought about that. I kind of always just took it for granted, but it's cool to see Tony Hawk talking about it.
Yeah, that had not occurred to me either. And and kind of getting into this, you kind of tend to forget that, skateboarding was a little frowned upon back then, and it was very underground, as Tony Hawk said. And it was hilarious when he's like, it was the surefire way not to meet girls. And but Back to the Future, it really did kick the door wide open to sort of bringing that into the mainstream and making it cool, right? And
Hmm.
like Tony said, an entire generation, decided that they wanted to go skateboard after watching Back to the Future. And it is an important element. And in the longer documentary, we do the deep dive behind that whole skateboard chase. John Clay Scott, who was doubling Tom Wilson and driving the 46 Ford, and you know, all the nuances. I mean, we touch upon it in the Universal piece, but there's some fascinating stuff there when we do the deep dive into the stunt work. And then they had to shoot that entire scene with Eric Stoltz, and Bobby Schmelzer was doubling Stoltz because he was the taller of the two skateboarders. Per Wellender then was doubling JJ Cohen. That's why they shaved his head. He was one of the, Biff's goons. And when they did the slide into the manure truck, the JJ Cohen character was closer to the truck and was going to completely be buried. So they pulled him out and put Per Wellender in there, and he got buried. But then when they shifted to Michael J. Fox, they're like, okay, well, we've got to reshoot this. Let's get Per because he's more Michael's size. And then they reshot it all. But you can spot certain shots that were clearly, Eric's double, that they kept in where he's taller and it's Bob Schmelzer. But to talk to Bobby Schmelzer and Per Wellender and the whole Charlie Crowell and John Clay Scott and Walter Scott, basically everybody involved in that scene, and the incredible like photographs that were taken documenting all of that material has never been seen before. In fact, Bob Gale had never seen some of these photos. It
Wow.
was it was kind of surreal when Bob emailed me and he said, "Hey, I noticed some of these photos. and I don't have them in my collection. Can I get a copy from you? I'm like, buy anything you want, Bob. You know, Bob, I'll tell you, what a guy. I mean, such a generous human being. I mean, really a generous human being. And it's very evident from interviewing everybody just how loved Bob Gale is by the whole crew, the cast. And again, it was just like the dream team. And then meeting Frank Marshall. I mean, Frank Marshall walked in and was very generous with his time and sat down with us. And Frank Marshall, to sum it up, is a total badass. I mean, Frank Marshall is just a badass. I mean, here's a guy who produced Raiders of the Lost Ark and has been involved in so many iconic films, but Frank is just such an impressive human being. And to be able to sit down with somebody like that, what a gift. What an absolute gift. So again, the fanboy in me is still doing cartwheels, and it's been so fun, but really, we're working so hard on these things because I want to give the fans something really special. And the studios really don't have a mechanism to, you know, put out something like this where it's such a deep dive and it's 5 hours, but I know there's an audience for it, and we're gonna put it out there for the fans. And I'm really proud of how it's coming together.
Say the
So
website one more time.
wheelhousetv.com. And so we'll have a special link that's basically where you can pre-order the Knight Rider limited edition Blu-ray that's going to have all the content. And again, it's the only time this will be for sale. And once these are gone, they're gone. And you'll be able to, pick up on shorter versions of this stuff later. But this will be kind of the ultimate version for the super fan. So I'm excited about it.
I'm excited about you coming to talk to me about it, and I hope that you'll come back again when there's more to discuss.
Absolutely. Anytime, Heath. It's been a real pleasure, and I love your channel. I watch your reviews, and it's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Rocco. It's been a real pleasure for me too. Let's just put a pin in it until the next time.
Sounds good.